Buying a brand new builder home is exciting, no doubt about it. I mean, you get to pick out all your paint colors, your finishes, all those things that make the home just really individual to you. And going to the design center is like being a kid in a candy store. But choosing all the finishes and upgrades for that new home can also be a little overwhelming, not to mention expensive. It's really easy to see all those wonderful options and wind up adding tens of thousands of dollars or even more to the price of your new home. So unless you've got bottomless pockets, you kind of need to be pretty thoughtful about what upgrades you choose and which ones you leave behind when you're building your new home. So stick around for some advice on which upgrades are worth spending your money on, which ones you can skip, and how you can keep from blowing your budget altogether. Welcome back. I'm Stephanie Frost, and I'm a real estate agent in Ocala, Florida. And I'm here every Tuesday to talk about all things real estate in the Ocala and Marion County, Florida area. When you buy a new construction home, most of the time you're going to start with one of the builder's standard model floor plans, and then you're going to get to choose whatever finishes and upgrades that you want in your new home. For a price, that is. So the first thing you need to do is figure out what your budget is for any additional features or upgrades. Get a spec sheet from your builder and pay close attention to what comes standard in your new home. Then figure out what things you absolutely have to have and which ones you'd really like but could live without in a pinch. Then, before you even sign on the dotted line for that new home, you really should make a trip to the design center so that you can get an idea of what the various options are. Take that list of what the standard builder package includes with you so that you can compare the standard finishes and styles to the upgraded versions. And you gotta know that most builders make the bulk of their profit on a new home in the upgrades. Yeah, they make money on the base price home, but the gravy's in the upgrades. So not only will most of the upgrades have a hefty markup, they're not all created equal either, so pay attention. Some upgrades are definitely going to be worth spending your money on, but there will also be a lot of things that you're going to be better off skipping for now and adding yourself later. As a general rule of thumb, anything structural, electrical, or plumbing related is worth upgrading through your builder. These kind of upgrades are worth paying for now because they can be pretty expensive to do after the fact. Plus, by doing them now, they'll not only be done properly, but they'll also be covered under your builder warranty. And that's pretty important for anything major. And structural, electrical, and plumbing things are pretty much major by definition. Structural upgrades would be things like a bay window, a tray ceiling, or a huge walk-in shower. This kind of stuff would be really expensive to add in later, so by all means get them done now by the builder. Electrical things to get done by the builder would be anything that involves running electrical wiring. You know, stuff like recessed lighting in the ceiling, extra outlets, wiring for a whole home stereo, or patio fans. These are all things that are more than likely be cheaper to do now than later. Same thing with anything that involves extra plumbing, like a laundry sink. You don't want to have to cut into your walls to add any of this stuff later if you don't have to. But just remember, when you're figuring in structural upgrades, be sure to ask about any hidden costs that might be associated with the upgrade that you're asking for. For instance, that big walk-in shower will probably have an upgrade cost just for building the actual shower, but it might also carry an additional cost for all the extra tile involved. So just be sure to ask about it now so you don't get a nasty surprise later. One of the more common upgrades is flooring, and flooring is sort of a 50-50 proposition as an upgrade. If you can't live with the standard floors in the kitchen and bathroom, then upgrading now is probably a good idea. Mainly because cabinets go on top of the flooring, so ripping the flooring out and replacing it later will not only be really messy, it just won't be nearly as aesthetically pleasing as just getting it done by the builder in the first place. And speaking of cabinets, that's another place that it's probably better to pay for the upgrade now as opposed to replacing them later. I mean, cabinets are expensive, so why pay for them twice? Now for the things you don't need to splurge on, and it's a pretty big list, so get ready. First up is carpet. Carpet upgrades at the design center are usually more expensive than replacing the carpet later. And carpet's a pretty easy install, so this is an upgrade that you can probably skip. And a lot of times, even the upgraded builder carpet isn't as nice as what you can buy yourself. So you're not only going to save money, but you'll have a better selection if you have it installed later. Now, if hardwood floors are on your must-have list, well, they can go either way. If you like the ones the builder offers, then it might be worth getting the upgrade now. Just know that you're going to be paying a premium for having the builder do it. On the other hand, if you don't like what the builder offers, then opt for the carpet instead, because carpet's pretty easy to rip out when you have your own hardwood installed later. Another upgrade that you'll probably pass up is upgraded cabinet hardware. Cabinet hardware is something that pretty much everybody can do themselves, and you'll save a ton of money by not buying the builder upgrade. And again, you'll have a way better selection of styles by buying the hardware yourself later. Now on to countertops. Kitchen and vanity upgrades are another thing that you can probably pass on. Builders usually only use one supplier for their natural stone or quartz counters, so your upgrade options are going to be pretty limited. And with a builder's premium, they can be a whole lot more expensive than if you just source the material and labor yourself. Ditto for the backsplash. Tile work is another area where the builder usually has a really hefty markup, and it's one of the simpler and less expensive upgrades that you can do on your own or have done by somebody else after you move in. You'll also be able to get a much better selection by waiting too, so there's another plus. Light fixtures are one more place you can really save some money. Light fixtures at the design center are usually horrendously expensive compared to what you can buy on your own, and switching out light fixtures is a pretty easy DIY. The fifth thing you can save money on is faucets, although there are some exceptions. The rule of thumb here is if the fixture's in the wall, like a shower valve, go ahead and get the upgrade from the builder if you can't live with what you get standard. But for most faucets and shower heads, you can easily replace them later yourself for a fraction of the price of the builder upgrade. You just have to make sure that the whole pattern lines up with the faucets that you want, so have some idea what you're planning on buying ahead of time. Paint is another place where you can keep some money in your pocket, especially if you want something other than the basics. Builders will typically only offer a few paint colors as standard, and the walls and the ceiling have to be the same color. Anything else is going to be an upgrade, and usually an expensive one. It may be worth it to you not to have to deal with painting, but be aware that you can save some serious cash by getting everything painted yourself later. Last on the list are window treatments. Yeah, you can get the upgraded versions from the builder, as long as you don't mind paying through the nose for them. But if you plan correctly and get good measurements, you can order custom window treatments yourself a whole lot cheaper and even get them installed before you move in. Sticking to your design center budget involves a little bit of strategy too. You'll probably have at least 2 appointments with the design center to pick out your finishes. So my best advice is to write up a list of everything that you'd like to have on the first visit and have the sales representative price everything out for you based on your home's floor plan. Take lots of pictures of everything so that you're going to remember it later when you're going over the list. Then take that list home with you and go over it carefully item by item. That way you can compare pricing on everything and pare down the list to just what upgrades you're comfortable with based on your budget. Then, on your second visit, you can look over everything again and make sure that you're still happy with your choices. And don't forget, once the rep has written up the final order, make sure to go over it with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that everything's correct and that everything you agreed on is included in the list at the prices that you were quoted originally. Mistakes happen, especially when you're going back and forth and maybe changing your mind about a few things here and there. And while they're easy to fix if you catch them right away, it'll be a whole lot harder if it's even possible later on. So now you've got some idea of what to expect at the design center and how you can get the upgrades and finishes that you want in your new home without completely blowing your budget out of the water. So as always, if you like this video and you'd like to see more, just remember to like and subscribe because I'll be back next week with even more helpful stuff. See you then.